How's it going, everybody? Welcome to the Crusaders channel. I'm O2. I'll be your host today. Today we're going to talk about melee weapons. What is your favorite weapon to get in there, mix it up with everybody, and smack the hell out of all of them? I got my co-host over here.
I'm Grant, and today, like he said, we're going to talk about some of the common weapons used in a melee event in armored combat. And so if you're not quite sure what you want to use, or you want to get a little bit of an insight into some other weapons, that's what we're going to be talking about today.
I have my guest here.
I'm Jake. I'm Regional Commander for the Northwest Region of Armored Combat Worldwide, and live right here in Salt Lake with these guys.
Yes. So, we have a bunch of weapons sitting over here on the table. My favorite is this little falchion right here. Can't say that I'm the best with it, but I do love to just right up the side of the head, somebody's head. Or if I can, just like tuck it into those tailbones. Like, it's very satisfactory for me. But I'm gonna let Jake take over for a second so he can talk about his favorite weapon to use in a melee.
So what I landed on, short axe. So it's got enough of, it's a mass weapon. That being said, it's not too long. It's not like your typical 6-footer polearm. My hang up with the big 6-foot polearms is that they hang up. They get caught on everything. So I don't like to use them. That being said, grappling really isn't my favorite. I can do it, I can keep up, but I don't like doing it as much as I like doing other things. So having something like this that's got the mass and it's got the hitting power gives me what I need that way. So it doesn't get tangled up, but it's still got enough mass that if I want to drop some bombs on armor gaps, I can do it. Another couple of things that I like about short axes, they're they're like crowbars. You know, you get it around the back of somebody's shoulders, and then you have body control for your grappling when you get there. Another couple of things I like to do with it is a can opener. So you get this bottom end of it in between somebody's legs. You push them over as hard as you can. While it's in between their legs, they trip on your axe. So it gives you a good mix of things that you can do. Also, it's a hockey stick, so you go running around and you hockey check people in the side of the head when they're not looking. It's just a really good all-around weapon. In my opinion, it's the little guy's best friend. So my particular axe was made by Ryan Weaver with Anvil Dragon Armory. You can find him on Facebook under Anvil Dragon, and I think that's also his Instagram handle, if I'm not mistaken. And yeah, and it didn't run me too much. I think this typically runs about 150. You can typically find these with your usual online armor producers, you know, Steel Mastery, Nadler, Metal Crafts. I think Ice Falcon Armory sells short axes as well. At least he sells the heads. And yeah, I think that's everything, right?
Yeah, I see a lot of axes, especially here in the U.S. It's probably the most, either a long axe or a short axe, some kind of two-handed axe is, would you say, the most popular weapon for melees in the United States?
Yeah, I'd say that's a pretty safe statement.
It's either that or a polearm.
I see a lot of axes here. Not as much as I mean, in Europe they use a little bit more, like falchions and whatnot. But yeah, an axe, you see a lot of those. I have to fight against them a lot, and they do have their benefits, and they do have some cons.
Yeah. So some of the cons is that their grapple ability does suffer quite a bit because you have big ol' handle that does get in the way. So it is, you know, what I typically find myself doing if I know I'm going to be grappling, I'll go from this grip to this grip or this grip where I'm getting the haft out of the way, because if the haft gets caught up, you're going to spend just as much time not losing your weapon as you are grappling with the other guy. You know, so you're spending energy and bandwidth keeping control of your weapon when you're in a situation where you really don't have control of it. And meanwhile, the other guy, he's happy because you're less focused on him and he gets to focus completely on dealing with you. So, you know, there's a downside. It hits hard, it's good for those kinds of things, but, you know, close-up grappling, you have to tailor your grappling style to accommodate that problem.
Alright, so next up, we're going to start talking about a little bit more that falls into my field is one-handed weapons and punch shields. Punch shields are very, very fun.
Yes, punch shields. They're actually my weapon of choice. I think I use it more than any other actual weapon. So a punch shield is generally any kind of smaller one-armed shield that is used to punch people.
Yeah.
And
Pretty much.
there are various varieties there are varieties of punch shields that you'll see. This one right here is a Pavis shield. This was made by Matt Richardson. Now, you'll see a lot of ones that are pointed. This is a little bit more squared. A lot are flat, whereas this one has actually been shaped. I prefer this shape because my arm will actually fit nicely inside, and for me, not having a single point allows me a higher chance of actually sticking my punch onto them. If I use a teardrop or any kind of pointed shield, I'll notice that my punches are more likely to glance off or actually not hit. If I do hit, yes, I land with a little bit more power, but I would prefer a higher percentage of landing my punches.
Yeah, so I'll jump in here real quick and talk to you about this. So in case you didn't catch that, the punch shield, that's kind of a modern colloquialism, and it's because the strap configuration on the shield is set that your natural inclination is to punch. So just to demonstrate that, got the back of the strap where that sits up against your bicep, and then your hand is sit up right here, so you get that punch. And that was a good point. That was a good point that you brought up with when you're selecting your shield shape. A flat shape, it is easier to stick a punch, but a point will hit harder. It's just harder to stick that point. So we got a teammate. I think he's been on the channel before, John Cheney.
Yes.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yes.
He's got this little itty bitty maximum weight punch shield with the tiniest curve that you're allowed to have on the point of a shield. It's a min-max shield. Like he literally maxed it like, I won't hit often, but when I do, I will knock you out. And I don't think he's ever actually knocked anybody out yet with that shield.
I don't know if I've actually seen that one.
No, you haven't. I was like, dude, 11 pounds on your left arm? Dude, come on. He's like, I'll train for it. And I'm like, don't. And, he min-maxed it. So
People don't use it for a reason.
Yeah. Because 11 pounds is just too freaking much. But, yeah, that is something to consider with balancing your fighting style is, min-maxing. Avoid it.
So I prefer the reliability of landing almost all of my hits.
Yeah.
And so for me, I use it more than just offensively. I use it defensively as well. I mean, it's a shield, so of course I use it defensively. But these are typically used by, they can be used by anyone. You'll see a lot of people running around, especially in Europe. You see a lot of dudes running around with like a falchion, a one-handed weapon with some kind of punch shield. And they're flanking around the field, very mobile. And then you'll see some other bigger dudes that intend on grappling more, and they'll have a shield on their arm. And I do a lot of grappling, and I prefer having separate weapons in each hand. And so I pair my shield with a mace. Now, a lot of people will, you can pair it with a hand axe, you can pair it with a falchion, you can pair it with a mace. This one is my favorite, and it's the easiest to use. You don't really have to worry about your edge alignment.
Yeah.
So that is good. There still is a proper technique to using a mace, and so if you can use it properly, it's gonna work better. But if you don't want to worry about getting your hook caught on somebody, or you don't really want to have to worry about your weapon other than just staying in your hand, a mace is a really nice thing to use. So I actually use a mace and a shield, and I do a lot more grappling. I'm not going to be going around like Jake is and landing those super nice shots to down people, pain them out. This is not a pain out weapon, but it is a useful weapon.
Yeah.
It is quite the nice bell ringer and butt slapper.
Yeah. If you're gonna strike with a mace, a mace is basically a mass weapon. So if you manage to land your strike at the fulcrum of the arc of your swing, it'll actually hit pretty hard. But all it really takes is somebody changing the distance by 1 or 2 inches, and then the usefulness of that hit is greatly diminished. We call maces grappling sticks. That's really why you use it. But if you're gonna strike, butt shots, I've gotten kills on that. It's just you get somebody bent over in a grappling, just tag that butt a few times, and that'll usually sit down.
Because you can do that with a mace, whereas with a falchion, it's a little hard to whip around to the underside that's not quite so padded. But as you said, it's a grappling stick for me, especially. You'll see me choke up a lot on my mace. It's less likely to fall out of my hand. I can still punch with it, and I can grapple. So I can hook this around the back of their shoulder, kind of get good grip on them and move them around. So this is very much, if you do intend on grappling a lot, or you just want to try out a weapon that's slightly cheaper to buy, this is going to run a lot cheaper than that axe that Jake uses. So if you want to try out a weapon and you wanna buy one or borrow one off of somebody, it's usually pretty cheap. And so
where do you pick them up?
this one is actually made by Medieval Extreme.
Okay.
So there are a lot of people that have them. I have a mace made from Brian Weaver.
Yeah.
And then I have two from Medieval Extreme. The Buhurt ones are very, very similar in design as the Medieval Extreme.
Yeah.
But I got it because it was a little bit cheaper, and it actually turned out to be my favorite mace of all the ones I've ever used.
Yeah.
As well as maces are very good for entry-level weapons. Like if you're new to the sport, if you haven't used a lot of weapons, you don't have the opportunity to use a lot of different weapons, you don't have to worry about edge alignment with your mace. And it's a good all-around starting weapon, especially if you just want to go one-handed. If you want to go two-handed, some people use two-handed maces. You mostly see them as one-handed weapons though.
Yeah. And, quick note on that here, two-handed mace, flanged maces have a caveat attached to them. All full contact armored fighting sports in the United States and in the world, they have a weight limit. It's 2.2 pounds. So if you're going to have a two-handed length flanged mace, it's going to weigh like a pound. At that point, it's a grapple stick, really. It's not enough mass to hurt.
So you're probably better off going with just an axe.
Yeah, just get an axe at that point. Yeah.
So if a mace isn't your thing, or you may want to upgrade, you tried it, you didn't like it, or you want to do something else with it, there are another couple options. If you still want to keep the shield, one-handed weapon, a falchion is probably one of the most commonly used one-handed weapons in the sport.
Yeah. So I'll jump in and talk about this a little bit. So falchions, they're like swords that historically there were swords that were designed to beat armor. So you think maybe there's something attractive about that. Again, we talk about axes or maces where it's a mass weapon. So you got this sweet spot in the arc of your swing where you're going to get all the kinetic energy that it can provide, and it'll hit pretty hard. But you get outside of that sweet spot, and the amount of kinetic energy you actually deliver is kind of nothing. It's not even worth writing home about when you get hit by it. Half the time you don't even know it happened. Falchions are a little bit different. They don't deliver quite as much kinetic energy. Their maximum kinetic energy is less than an axe or a mace or other mass weapons. That being said, you get to keep more of it through the arc of a swing, because it's basically a sword. It's a big choppy boy. That's kind of one of the terms for falchions and falchion-like weapons. We call them big choppy boys. So you lose some of the kinetic energy, but then you get a lot more of the agility. I really like this one. This is it's not Andrei Galveski, but Nadler sells them. He's a reseller for a Ukrainian producer by the name of Andrei. I forget his last name, but you can purchase these at Nadler Metal Crafts.
I believe that's where this one came from as well.
Yeah. And these are pretty nice in the sense that they're surgical. So that nice little sweet shoulder gap between a spalder and then the aventail. These are money for that. These are money for hitting your gaps. And will you down somebody with it? Maybe, maybe not. But at the very least, they'll change their mind about dealing with whatever it is they're dealing with and come and talk to you instead. So those are some of the advantages that they offer. They got enough thump that you can make your point heard when you want to hit somebody. But they also handle better than axes and maces and other mass weapons.
Yeah, they're definitely better balanced than axes.
So to continue with the common theme of there's always a trade-off, this one doesn't hit as hard, but you're guaranteed a higher chance of hitting because you have the full length of the blade.
Yeah.
Whereas a mace and an axe, you'll hit harder, but again, they're smaller. So if your distance gets off, you're not going to land that shot.
Yeah.
All true points.
An axe, though, it does have another little feature in it. So it does have that hook. So if you do find somebody using, a lot of shields or something, they're trying to guard their friend or whatever, you can kind of use it to kind of hook that shield and move it out of the way so you can get in, or your buddy can get in that nice hit. Or if you have enough room, you can actually choke up and then punch with the blade of the axe.
I actually do that to you routinely. Is that at all effective? Do you know them there?
It hits harder than a regular gauntlet punch. So
And it's easier on your gauntlet, yeah.
Yeah, the few times I've actually used an axe, that's how I'm gonna use it, because wielding a mace all the time, when I'm choked up and I'm punching, I'm destroying my gauntlet. I'm hitting helmets, I'm hitting shields, I'm hitting whatever piece of armor it is, and it destroys my right gauntlet far more than my left one. Whereas with an axe, where I can actually fit my hand up and choke up, I'm going to deliver all that force along a small little blade, rather than all the rivets and plates and everything in my gauntlet. So if you want to punch a lot, but you don't want to destroy your gauntlet, maybe consider an axe, a small axe, and have enough room to choke up and actually punch with it.
So we were talking about falchions, where you can typically get them. Again, Nadler Metal Crafts, Ice Falcon Armory, Buhurt Tech, and Steel Mastery. They sell those too.
Yeah, Buhurt Tech and Medieval Extreme
Medieval
also sell
Extreme,
a lot of falchions, axes, maces.
And then the odd cottage industry producer, that you happen to run into, but we don't necessarily have anybody in mind at that point.
So there's also the new weapons outlet. What is it? Canadian Buhurt?
Canadian Buhurt?
Yeah.
Okay.
They got a lot of falchions out recently.
If it's rated for HMB, IMCF, ACW, ACS, it's for the most part going to be able to be used in the sport.
Alright, next up we're going to start talking about a bigger falchion, but for that we're going to bring in one of our other teammates, Austin. Welcome to the party, man.
Hey guys,
What's up, dude?
nice to see everyone again. Yeah, I'm here to talk to you guys about some of my favorite weapons. I'm going to start with the Two Handed Falchion. So first and foremost, one of the things about the Two Handed Falchion that really can't be beat is the look. One of the things that, honestly, a lot of people like this weapon because of how it looks. It looks like if you happen to be into anime, it looks like an anime sword. If you like old exaggerated stories, the sword itself, it almost looks fake, right?
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
A lot of people don't know that this was actually used historically, so
Yeah.
I would
It's
say
like
that's
an orc sword.
exactly.
Yeah.
That's one of the things that just can't be beat. You feel cool when you walk out onto the field using this guy. The other thing is that it kind of exaggerates some of the pros that the one-handed falchion had. One of the things that you will not see us bringing out is a long sword. Jake, why don't we bring out long swords?
To melees, they don't have any thump to them. They don't offer any of the things that you need in a weapon. The reason that you bring a weapon that you hold with two hands into a melee is because you want to make somebody say "ow," preferably enough that they quit. And long swords can't do that.
Yeah. In our sport, we're not fighting with an edge, and we also don't stab. The longsword is particularly good at stabbing and using its bladed edge. So with both of those things being taken away when we're fighting in a melee, that goes away. So the falchion will be giving you a lot of the things that the longsword could have given while accentuating the fact that it hits hard, like the one-handed falchion over here. So you can see this huge curve over here. It does come to a point. If you're able to swing the weapon and connect on this point specifically, as someone's coming in or if they're held up by someone else, this weapon can do a lot of damage. It is pretty comparable to the axes, depending on the exact shape that you have, maybe a little bit less, but it's pretty close there. And then there's a couple other parts that are different. This one has a D guard, so it goes over your gauntlets so that you're able to block with this, you're able to punch with it by hitting, and then it does have a pommel as well. So this particular one doesn't have one that's accentuated. I have another two-handed falchion at home that has a very mean pommel that is able to deliver a lot of force. So it's just, it's overall, it's a pretty fun weapon. You can block with it as well because you get a lot of the speed side to side. But depending on how thick your two-handed falchion is, you could bend the blade, so that may not be a good idea. My old friend in the sport, the buckler. The buckler is widely used in Europe. I wouldn't say it's necessarily as popular in the United States. You'll certainly see some people using it, but it's very, very much used throughout Europe in a wide variety of countries. The reason being is that this is just a ridiculously versatile weapon. So if I'm fighting against somebody over here, I normally fight with a mace and my buckler. If I'm coming up to somebody and we get really close, I can use this to block his whole face. Once he's blocked, I can then deliver a blow here. I can just bring my arm over. I can start doing stuff with my feet, and he's blocked out. If I want to grapple, the smoothness on this allows it to move pretty much anywhere, and it never gets stuck. That is one of the differences to a punch shield, is that sometimes when you get really close, the shield can get caught on flanges. The buckler, I've yet to ever have it get stuck on someone because of the round edges. And then another fun thing for all the people who like punching, like myself, you flip it up, and you now have a nice set of brass knuckles that are able to connect and do a pretty good amount of force.
I have to say it works too. I've taken a lot of punches like that, and it really hurts. It hurts a lot.
Yeah. So, bucklers are produced by a lot of different makers. Almost everyone that we talked about does make them. Nadler, we get ours through a maker in Denmark that actually does a lot of clothing and other things, but they happen to make pretty nice bucklers. Honestly, you can get them almost anywhere that sells the other weapons. It's not a particularly unique weapon. It's just I really love it. If you are a grappler, highly consider using a buckler, and you'll be able to see how well it can block hits. You'll be able to see how well it helps you as you're blocking sight, as you're punching. It's gonna be something that you're gonna want to add to your repertoire.
There is definitely a lot of differences in the versatility between the buckler and the punch shield. One of them being that you can actually let go of the buckler, where you can't let go of the punch shield. I've used both of them before in the past. The punch shield people are able to grab a hold of, and now they have control of your entire arm, which then you can't let go. If they get a hold of your buckler, you can just let go of it and you can punch them with it, or you can punch with your hands, or you can grab them and toss them. There's a lot to think about when you're trying to figure out what weapons you're going to be using in your melees.
Mm-hmm. Now, I did not go over the cons of using the weapon though. Jake, as someone who has fought people who are using bucklers in melees, when you're coming up against a guy who's using this buckler, using this mace over here, what do you see as being immediate issues?
It doesn't have a lot of defensive capability. That's one of the big problems associated with it. So if you get stuck on a fence or you get stuck in a corner, that is one of the nice things about a shield is you are going to know where your armor gaps are. You're going to know where the soft spots are, so you can cover up with a shield. You know, boxers, when they cover up, you see a lot of that same practice with guys using shields that strap to their arm. Versus this, you kind of can't cover up because, again, you're holding it by this handle, Austin, if I may.
Yeah.
You know, you're holding it by this handle, so that's your other problem with defensive capabilities. So you have to have an offensive mindset, and if you get forced into a defensive posture, say on a fence or in a mosh pit, you're going to be in a lot of trouble because just for that little problem. And then the next one, go ahead and just hold that up. If you have gauntlets that have a cloth liner, step one, get rid of the cloth liner and get some leather gloves in there, okay? But if if you haven't done that yet, this trick won't work. With leather gloved gauntlets, as long as you're holding on to this, I own you. It's really easy to get a hold of and keep a hold of because of that metal on leather phenomenon. So those are some of the drawbacks associated with it.
Yeah. So it's once again, there's not going to be a perfect weapon, but I have found a lot of success in using this. So for all you grapplers out there, definitely give it a shot.
Two Handed Falchion made by Buhurt Tech. I want to say you can get them from Nadler stateside, but most of the time you're going to be going through overseas distributors to get a hold of these Two Handed Falchions.
Yeah, I got the one that I have back at home is made by Medieval Extreme.
Alright, so next, now that we've talked about all of these beautiful weapons, we're going to save the best for last. We're going to go over these armor destroyers over here.
Yep.
We're going to bring in Philip. So thank you so much, Austin.
Take it easy, dude.
So we brought in Philip over here, not Austin, so he can talk about his wonderful little weapon of mass destruction over here.
Alright, so first off, let me say something before I start talking about this. If you're going to use one of these, this isn't the best weapon. The best weapon's your team. I can't tell you how many times I have put somebody to the ground because a teammate was willing to hold them for me. Right? So this works in conjunction with someone else. And the reason for that is my grappling ability goes down dramatically with a polearm. Part of the reason is because you've got the length, right? It's so long. I can one-hand it, right? But I'm going to trip myself, or my opponent's going to accidentally kick it and it's going to go flying out of my hands or something like that. So grappling makes it a lot more difficult. Also just moving around, right? Like I said, it's just big and cumbersome. Having said that though, you got a teammate who can grab your opponent and turn them just a little bit, just enough you can get that angle on them. Man, you drop one of these on them and they're going to regret their life decisions. So I don't think I've ever used this polearm in a tournament, but I absolutely love it. One of the things I love about it, the blade doesn't come out a ton. And the reason I love that is because I don't have to worry about blade alignment. All it takes is just a little bit to be off a little bit on that angle, and instead of getting a straight flat shot, I'm slapping them with the blade. So the blade being closer to the haft, I really love about this. But this is why I really love this polearm here. It's the other side. This pommel right here is devastating, because everybody, you're going to fight, and you're all ready to drop this bomb. And so you take this swing. What they don't realize is you've already like loaded up to drop this right in their jaw, and they really hate that. So if it's one-on-one, you just knock them right here in the knock them with this pommel over here. I'm hoping that's getting that in the camera. Yeah. But they're definitely will send stars going through their head. This one here is Buhurt Tech. I do have another polearm. Unfortunately, I broke the haft on it. I hit somebody too hard, and thanks to a wonderful teammate who was holding for me, but hit somebody too hard, broke the haft in half, and that one was made by Ryan Weaver. I liked that other polearm in many ways better because the haft I felt like was a lot better, but this one I'm quite happy with because of the balance and the butt cap over here. So, anyways, yeah.
I'm gonna jump in here real quick here, just talk about pros and cons. So grappling with these is kind of a dream if you are a short axe guy, and I'll tell you why. You see me earlier in this video where I dropped the one hand, and my favorite thing to do, go ahead and square up to me as best you can. He's got it all propped up. Just grab it. We getting that in frame? That's all you got to do, and then you own them.
It's so true.
Get a little closer to him. Go ahead and just get that a little closer to him.
Yeah, here you go.
Bring it up. So you got your axe out of the way. You just grab it. As long as you got a free hand. If you got a shield, you got a buckler. You're kind of SOL on that tactic. At that point, one of the really nice things is that sets you up to, especially if you're a bigger guy. I can't really do this because I'm small. C'est la vie. You're a big guy. You grab them. Then you have the ability to control distance. You can push it up against them and push them back. You can pull it. You can pull real hard, and it pitches their weight forward. It sets you up for good leg sweeps and leg hooks, which I've been able to do. On fighters about Phil's size, because there's a comparable size. Be warned, if you're small like me and you do that to a big guy, say we'll say like Lance Hoffman, Simon Rorich, just like they will like whip you into the sun. Like that doesn't really work that well on if there's a size disparity, be cautious of that. But if you're going to use that is a weakness that you should be aware of. More and more people are doing that or using that tactic. I invented it. First guy to do it. But yeah,
and it's as annoying as heck.
Yeah.
Trying to deal with somebody that's grabbed onto your polearm, right? You're playing this tug of war game.
Yeah. Once again, go ahead.
I was just gonna say you're playing this tug of war game, and if you let go, you're without a weapon. So. Yeah.
And again, that goes to like dictating focus in the fight. People are conscious. You're always going to be conscious of your equipment's weaknesses. It can be a source of anxiety. The armor gap guy over here, I can attest to that. So when you get a hold of their weapon and you can actually assert some level of control, their focus, much of the time their focus will divert from trying to beat you to wresting control of their weapon from you. So their metric for victory changes from getting you on the ground to getting their weapon back. Meanwhile, you're just trying to get them on the ground. So it's a weakness and an advantage depending on what side of the weapon you're on. That being said, these hurt. These hurt really bad.
So I used to have an axe. I used to use an axe. Never got any KOs until I switched over to a polearm. I've knocked a couple people out. One with the blade side, another person with the butt end side. So, it can do some serious damage.
So now that we've gone over everything, I want to just touch on a little bit the difference between using a full metal weapon and a hafted weapon, because there is a bit of a trade-off. One of the big things is that when your bladed weapon, your full metal weapon breaks, like it's pretty much broken. Like it's never going to be the same. You can weld it. Yeah. This one has been broken 2 different times. And as you can see, it's put back together. However, it does not handle the same. Like this is not the same sword that it used to be. If you have a hafted weapon, your wood haft is going to break a lot more than my metal weapon is going to break. However, you can just get a new haft and you have the same weapon again.
Yeah, I'd say if you have a hafted weapon, at least with my polearms, that first one, I think the haft lasted maybe 6 months. So, I mean, you're looking to, if that, depending on how much you're using it. Your hafts with hafted weapons will probably last you about 6 months, and that's about it.
Yeah. In summary, you know, as someone who's, I've been doing this for pushing 8 years now, and I can tell you, 8 years, getting on 8 years. Yeah, it's been a while.
I realize.
Yeah.
Goodness.
The majority of the history of the sport in the United States, I've been around for. That is just something to be conscious of. You know, you're going to be doing more work on hafted weapons. You're going to be doing more maintenance work, and you're going to be hewing down a lot more hafts. But with full metal weapons, they're good until they go, and then once they go, I mean, they're pretty much done. You know, depending on where they break at the hilt, you might be able to get it to go back together, but it will fail again. You break halfway up the blade, you just throw it in the garbage because you're done. I'm really surprised that thing keeps going.
Me too.
It's probably not high carbon. It's more like probably AR 500 or something, especially as thick as it is. Anyway. Yeah, that is something to be cognizant of. Is, you know, if your circumstances are you live in an apartment in like New York or something and you don't have access to tools, that might be something that you want to consider. Is like, well, if my haft breaks, what am I going to do? Because the nearest Home Depot is forever away and I don't have a car. You may want to just decide on getting a steel, you know, full steel weapon, just because they're less maintenance. When they go, they're done, and you got to buy a new one. But you know, and then the hafted weapons. You know, if you live in the woods and you just go and you have a full access to a wood shop, but you're broke, well, you know, just buy a Vulge head, and then you can rehaft it at your pleasure. You know, so it kind of circumstances can dictate that.
Yeah.
All right, y'all. Thanks for sticking with us through all of this weapons talk. I hope you found it interesting. If there's weapons or different weapons you'd like us to go over in more detail, leave us a comment in the comment section below.
I think it's the like section you're thinking of.
The like section?
No, I'm just messing with you.
Go ahead and like the video if you enjoyed what we was talking about, you enjoy our antics. Hit the subscribe button, and we'll see you next time.
There we go.